Here on Daf Tzadi Hey Amid Beis, and we're up to Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, and that is, we'll count up from the bottom of the Amud, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines up from the bottom. Halacha K'Rab Yossi, who says that posel al yidei atzmo, but only if it's posel al yidei acherim. So Gemara thinks at this point that Shmuel Paskins halacha Rabbi Yossi, the way Rabbi Yossi was interpreted by Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, meaning that Rabbi Yossi holds that the Baal of the Arusa who married Achosa based on the testimony of Eid Echad that his Arusa had died, Asura Lachzor Labaila. She cannot resume her marriage relationship with her husband because we're afraid that maybe people will say that there was a Tanai in the Kiddushei Arusa, since there was no Nesuin, so there was no Bittul Tanai. The Tanai is active, and Lo Niskaimat, and therefore Bitlu HaKiddushim. So he married her sister, and V'nosas Achotza, Achar Shenisgarsha, Ve'im Yachzirena, Nimtza Machzir Gushaso, Bishenises. Is maskif law based on that assumption? Rav Yosef raised the following objection: Umi Amar Shmuel Hachi, are you telling me that Shmuel's shita is that we're always afraid that people will say that there was a Tanai b'Kedusha by Itmar? We have a contradiction because of the din of Yevamot, and we have Machlokes Rav and Shmuel. Rav Amar Arehi Keishes Ish, Shmuel Amar Eina Keishes Ish. Amar Rav Huna, in explaining this machlok between Rav and Shmuel, Rav Huna says, Kigon Shekidesh Achiv Es HaIsha, before Nesuin, the Holach Lo LeMedina Sayam. And after he married her with Kiddushin, he went out to Medina Sayam V'Shoma, and his brother, who's back here, heard that Shemeis Achiv, in other words, one aide testified that his brother died out there in Medina Sayam, left no children, V'Yomid V'Nosas Ishto. And then the brother, the Yavam, stood up and he was Miyabim, the Arusa. And now the husband comes back. And as it turns out, he was married to Eshes Achiv, Be'isur, to Rav Omar, Hare Hi Keshes Ish, Yasur Yavam, which means that she's prohibited to the first Baal. He's called the Yavam. And why? Because with Choshesh, this is according to Rav, of course, that Yomru, the people who are spectators, will say that L'Rishon Haya Tanai B'Kiddusha, there was a Tanai in the Kiddushay Rishon. Lonis Kaima Tanai Ubotla Kiddusha V'Noso Sa Sheni Beheter. His brother married her Beheter because she wasn't Ashes Achid. And now, if we're going to be mater her to go back to her first husband, people are going to say that she's marrying Ashes Achid, meaning the second brother, his wife. Omar Eino Keshes Ish V'Sharyale. Eino Chashuva L'Gabi Baila Rishon Keshes Ish Shalab Yavim. He Muteres Lachzo L'Baila Rishon. She's allowed to resume her marriage relationship with her first husband. The Ein Lochash, and we're not afraid she Yitlu Haya Tnai Bekedushin Ubotlu Kishalonis Kaimatra. Not that the Kedushin was completely null and void because of a Tnai. And the reason for Shmuel is because Shmuel holds Tanai is Eino Motz. It's not something that is generally happening. It's not common. And Lo yitlu b'davar shenemotzi. People don't think that something that's unlikely to happen actually happened. Eliyomru, but rather they'll say shahaya kantos chit'u edim, that the reason why he was able to marry her sister, or shall we say the reason why his brother was able to be miyabim his wife, is because there was a toad based on the incorrect edus. So Shmuel is not choshesh that they'll say there was a Tanai v'Kiddush. So how could Shmuel pass like Rabbi Yossi when the Arusa and his brother-in-law went out to Medina Sayyam and they heard that they both died, and he married Achos Ishto, and Asura Lachzor Lebailov. She can't go back to her husband because of the chash that people say that the Nesurei Sheni were valid, because the Kedushay Rishon was just an Arusa with a Tanai, and there was no Kiyama Tanai, and it's Batel. And it comes out that he's being Machzir Gushasa Mishanises. So how do we reconcile this contradiction in Shmuel? Amalei Abai, Abai's sister of Yosef. Umimai, how do you know D'chi Amar Shmuel? Halacha ki Rabbi Yosef. Ad Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha Ka'amar. This is Shmuel assuming the interpretation of Rabbi Yossi the way Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha understood Rabbi Yossi. Dilma perhaps Ad Rabbi Ami Ka'amar. It's possible that when Shmuel paskened halacha, he was assuming the explanation of Rabbi Yossi based on Rabbi Ami's understanding, which means that Rabbi Yossi never said that we're not choshesh, that they'll say there was a Tanai b'Kiddushin klal. I'm sorry, that ein lochush, we're not choshesh that people will say there's a Tanai b'Kiddushin. But rather, the explanation of Rabbi Yossi, according to Rabbi Ami, is that even if she was married based on the testimony of one aide that her husband died, Achosa, her sister, Asura, Latza Levaila, she can't go back to her husband. Va'oseres, Af es Achosa Levaila. The lav dafka b'kiddush, we're not talking about kiddushin, because we're not choshish for Tanai. The inami, and even if you want to assume in the context of Shmuel that Ad Rabbi Yossi Nafka, Shmuel was accepting the interpretation of Rabbi Yossi based on Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka. Mimai de aposel. How do we know that when Shmuel paskin halach Rabbi Yossi, it means on all statements of Rabbi Yossi, even on the statement of Arusoso v'gisoso, Shaholchalam dinis hayam, that ishto psula ola machmas eshes giso shasur lebaila, and therefore he paskin that that we have to be choshesh, that they'll say that there was a t'nai in the kiddushin. How do you know such a thing?